Hi guys. I hope you're having a great time. I gotta tell you a little wee bit of a secret. Just a wee secret. I'm secretly Scottish. I'm secretly the mother of Shrek. That's not true. You probably could figure out the secret by now, although oddly, it doesn't usually affect my eyes that much. They don't usually really get red, but they tend to get a little bit glossy. That's right, I partook in the devil's lettuce, but it is because I am the devil's favorite daughter. That's right, hello, Antichrist, pleased to meet you. I am here on this channel every single week doing the Antichrist's good work, and that is talking about horror movies, and today I have to talk about Y2K. Before I get into that though, if you're feeling the vibe so far, then click subscribe and join our little cult. Also click the like button and the notification bell, that way you never miss the next video. I do a lot of solo reviews like these and a whole other mess of crap. I do a lot of different kinds of content here. But anyway, I've gathered you all here today to talk about A24's newest film, Y2K. Why? Because it's too cool. If you're new here, usually the first half of the video is spoiler free and then I get into kind of like a plot breakdown. So if you haven't seen it, you're safe for a while. I'm just a little bit high. It's perfect. The reason why I decided to partake today will become abundantly clear. But first, let me just set the stage for you. Okay, so I was in Burbank in the afternoon to see Night Bitch because it wasn't coming anywhere near me. So I had to mob down there, and that I will be giving a dedicated review over on the Patreon. So if you want to get all the bonus reviews too, then join me over there. Strange film, have a lot of thoughts. But then it was like 5 p.m. when it ended, and if you know anything about Los Angeles, you do not drive home at 5 p.m., okay? So I was like, friends in the area, like, who wants to get dinner with me? So I hung around, and then it was like, oh shit, there is a showing of Y2K, also in Burbank. Am I gonna stay out here? Am I gonna be out late and not be in bed by 10 p.m.? God damn it. But it was so worth it, and I would do it again 100,000 million times because the energy was right. I gotta frequent Burbank more often, but it is just such a mob for me. It was preview night, right? So it was Thursday night, and upon entering the theater, there was somebody standing there and she was passing out these little mini flyers, and they had QR codes on them, and she was like, A24 really wants your feedback, like let us know what you think of the movie afterwards. And I was like, say less, do you even know who I am? I didn't say that, I didn't even think that, but of course I'll run my gums about this movie, thank you. So that was cute, and then we get in there and my friend is like, ooh, this has got a real aura of like film bro energy in this room. And it wasn't really. I spotted a few, but the vibes were good. I'm a film bro myself. I don't have any room to speak, right? The crowd ended up being so good. I need to see movies like in the city more often, like in Hollywood where people clap when Nicole Kidman's AMC ad comes on the screen. Those are my people. That being said, was the movie perfect or was it just an amazing crowd? Because I've been swept up by premieres before. I got to go to the Disney premiere of Haunted Mansion last year, and it was at Disneyland. It was so sick. But even so, even though the vibes were great, free food, free drinks, got to go on the ride at Disneyland, got to stay in the park afterwards, I still only gave the movie 3 stars. So I like to think that my brain is untouchable. I like to think that I am the least biased person in the entire world. Can't crack me. I'll always think for myself. It is still a reasonable question. Was the movie hilarious, or was I just in a theater full of stoners? I wish that I showed up stoned. This movie was like my favorite kind of stupid. The kind of stupid that's just ridiculously charming somehow. The movie heavily in the first act features these teen boy characters that are talking about busting a nut. I mean, there are like 30 jokes about it and I'm in stitches somehow. Do you know how hard that is to achieve with me? I don't like men. That's putting it lightly. I have hissed at my sister's ex-boyfriend in public. I barked at a man in Amsterdam that was catcalling my friend. My spectrum of distaste is so vast, okay? But I think what it really is that they peel back the archetypal layer of the character and make them real people. It was very much giving Superbad, and there even is like the hypersexual fat best friend. It was still very stereotypical with Jaden Martell as the lead character. He's playing Eli. He's kind of the Michael Cera. Then you have Julian Dennison who's playing Danny, and he is very much the Jonah Hill. Rachel Ziegler is the new Emma Stone, yada yada. And they even set it in the same decade. I think the old Jonah Hill archetype has kind of been updated injected. Danny was one of my favorite characters in the movie. I find him a lot more palatable than Jonah Hill in Superbad, and I love Superbad, okay? I am a huge proponent of teen comedies and stoner comedies. Those two probably remained within their trope the most. Rachel Zegler's character, Laura, she's a popular girl, and they unpack that more than they ever would have, I feel like, in old real 2000s comedies. It's not super deep, okay? Like, they just give us these glimpses of these moments of reality with the characters. Majority of the time, like, I would say 90% of the time, I'm just in stitches. Like, I'm in belly laughs. We're just having a blast. And then there's that 10% that, like, anchors you so solidly to these characters. I fell in love with them. That's a huge reason why the comedy works so well, because they feel like real people that I do care about. You're more likely to laugh at a joke when you feel like you really know a person, because it's like, oh, that's in character of them. That's within context. Like, for me, how it's really in character to make a joke about eating freshly born babies. Give me that afterbirth, baby. I will stick a straw in it. Too much and too graphic. I think it was clever to use the archetypes that we know and love from the early 2000s just to like really quickly establish the characters. That made it really easy to get the comedy flowing right off the bat, and then more so through like the second act, you really get to know them better and the comedy develops even more layers. I love comedies, if you couldn't tell. I think it's just because comedy and horror, two sides of the same coin, baby. We've been having this conversation since like Jordan Peele broke out on the scene, but it's always been true. Horror is always at its best when there's some comedy injected, unless you're Robert Eggers, in which case you like to craft a very depressing vibe, which I respect, and I'm so excited for Nosferatu. Tangents galore. And now, what was I talking about? Suppose I was talking about the laughs. This movie is entirely unpredictable, both in the sense of the comedy and then also the action. It is downright heartbreaking at times. Like, I was so shocked by the majority of this film, and that's the only way that comedy can work. It's the only way that horror can truly work. And yes, this is very much a comedy. I don't know if my regular audience is gonna be like, boo, that what? This isn't really a horror film. It is though. It's basically a slasher. Just super, super heavy on the comedy. This movie seems like one of those kismet things with the casting. It just seems so perfect. I feel like there was definitely a lot of real life chemistry off screen. And judging by some of the posts I've seen that the cast has been putting out, it does seem like they're homies, which is very common. That happens a lot. Rachel Zegler was great. She didn't get to do a whole lot in the way of comedy. Her main role was love interest. She didn't really get to have a lot of inner life because it's pointed out within the dialogue that she's this popular girl and they're kind of all talking about their collective social problems, and she says just something dumb, like some dumb non-problem, and another character is like, damn, you have really corny problems. I like that the movie kind of pokes fun at the popular pretty girl stereotype, the one that the main loser is lusting after and somehow wins by the end of the movie. The movie very much pointed out like, yeah, she is a little boring, but she's really pretty and she's nice, and that makes her lovable still. Love that. Girlhood. And getting into performances all the way, I think that Jaden Martell, this was like a really solid choice for him because it established him as this phenomenal dramatic actor, and he was just a kid, and now I think that he's 20. Oh my gosh, he is 21. He's almost 22. Congrats on drinking. This movie established him as a phenomenal comedic actor. Down to the minutia of his performance, like all of his facial movements, everything seems very calculated, or it's just really amazing editing. He low-key could be the dominant cast member of It 2017. A lot of those people kind of just fell off, like they were so big in the moment. Same thing with like all the Stranger Things people. But a lot of those people, it seemed like they'd be the next thing, and then they just kind of like weren't. Jaden Martell kind of could be. He's a little bit pigeonholed into these more like soft-spoken nerd roles. I feel like he's gonna be one of those actors that's gonna keep getting more interesting as he ages. Actually, I would say that Sophia Lillis became the dominant cast member, but who just got to play the love interest of Rachel Zegler? Like, also, I was today years old when I learned that she is only 5 feet tall. So many people in Hollywood are so tiny. Also from It, I'm not including Bill Skarsgård in the conversation. Again, he is out on a league of his own now. Again, I am very excited for Nosferatu. Somebody invite me to an early screening, please. Lastly, I gotta talk about Kyle Mooney because, sir, I'm afraid to say that I was unfamiliar with your game. I don't watch SNL. I used to be really into I Threw It on the Ground. Watched that almost every day when I got home from school in 7th grade. Man, this ain't my dad. This is a cell phone. I threw it on the ground. Happy birthday birthday to the ground. But I don't think I've ever watched an entire episode start to finish. Kyle Mooney is the funniest person in the movie, and it's not really even close, but everyone does pull their weight. Like I said, he is the reason why my Letterboxd review said, does a lot for white guys with dreads. That's a joke. That's satire. This movie is poking fun at that archetype as well. Stoners really were a different breed when I was growing up because it was so dire. Like, I remember people I knew in high school, they would do the apple trick. You gotta carve a tunnel in an apple, the ones that they would get from the school cafeteria. Or in dire times, there might have been one time, I'm ashamed of this, okay? Don't try this at home, where, you know, you like smush a plastic bottle and then you like carve a little hole in it and then you smoke out of the top of the plastic bottle so bad. You know how many fumes? Like, how am I still alive? So stoners had to be a different breed of people, and it was those white guys with dreads. Kyle Mooney, oh captain, my captain, I will give you that, king. You went off. I'm actually sad that I can't watch this movie for the first time again, to see all the deaths for the first time again, for all the jokes to land for the first time again, unless I get a degenerative brain disease. Here's hoping. That's how funny it was, and the thing is, it's not even subversive. It's just good old-fashioned dumb shit. I felt like we really lost comedies for a long time. There are so many movies that are just so afraid to take it there. They're just not tentpoles anymore. Unless they're really bland, generic, white people Hallmark type shit. Are we so back though? Like, give Kyle Mooney all the money. It's reminding me of Booksmart. That was a breath of fresh air in 2019. Good comedies, I just feel like are so few and far between these days. But the only way that a comedy can be like using all these tropes and everything and still be so hilarious is because it's not afraid to go there. This movie is stupid and proud. It's like when SpongeBob is like, I'm ugly and I'm proud. This movie is like, I'm stupid and I'm proud. It just feels so good when you can tell that like all the ego has been dropped and people are just like trying to have a good time. One of the most inspired aspects of this movie too, I haven't even touched on, is the editing. The editing, it added another entire layer to all the laughs. The editing was also very, very 2000s, but also with kind of an auteuristic spin. It felt very unique. I mean, a lot of it is things that we have already seen because a lot of us were around in the early 2000s or the late 90s. Yeah, I was around in both. I was born in 99, baby. I was there for Y2K. I saw it all go down. This does feel like a love letter to the early 2000s, especially to like the kind of outcast groups. In terms of how accurate it is, I was not a teenager in 99. I was 0 years old. So I can't fully speak to the accuracy, whereas with Time Cut that also just came out, I kind of was because it took place in 2003. And I was like, where are those fugly shorts? Like, I'm not seeing what I should be seeing right now. One of my complaints was that nobody had frosted tips or like chunky highlights, and people had them in Y2K. It was a lot more understated, whereas like in Time Cut, it still was kind of accurate. Like, yeah, a lot of people were in juicy couture outfits and Uggs, but I think Y2K probably captured a more accurate portrayal of the time period, especially also with how horrible all the teenagers were, all the horrendous language they used. You know, they didn't push it as far as they could have, which is nice. I prefer a slightly more idealized version of 1999-2000. That's totally fine. I just think in general, understated period pieces work a little bit better. Like, yeah, this movie has its moments where, oh, he's blowing into the gaming thing to make it work. Yeah, we all been there. It has those kind of select moments during the first act, especially to kind of set the stage. But with all of the outfits and the hair and everything being more understated, it feels more believable. Because when you go back and you watch like Superbad, you know, everybody has the terrible like spaghetti strap things going on and like mini skirts, but nothing really stands out that much, you know? And Time Cut was a lot more, I feel like, for people below 7th grade. Y2K was a solid R-rated comedy. I highly recommend A24, I got your back. Pick up the phone, babe. I give this movie a 5-star rating just because I had a blast. One last thing I am editing, I'm so sorry, but I would be remiss if I did not mention the impeccable use of Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba, specifically because I have fucking loved that song ever since I was a kid, because Fired Up used to be like my favorite movie of all time. Is it fantastic? Does it really hold up? Maybe not the best. And why did I really like it? Because I was gay. So anyway, next, they used Tub Thumping in Fired Up as well, and that movie's from like 2008. So it just felt so perfect in Y2K. Like, all the music choices, so fucking good, because also the use of the thong song. Okay, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna go. Bye. Mwah. Who knows how I'll feel in the second viewing. viewing. Obviously, jokes don't hit the exact same the second time around, and all of the surprises don't hit the same, but that viewing experience was amazing. I hope that they do get to have kind of a wider release. Now let's get into some spoilers, and because I've been yammering away for quite a while already, I'm just gonna hit on the most important highlights. We'll go over my reactions. Why the fuck does this have a 47% on Rotten Tomatoes? These critics don't know what the hell they're talking about. I will curse you all. The setup of all the different characters was really fun. I enjoy how each of them got to be established quickly. You have the popular kids who are stealing alcohol. You've got the bully alt kids that are using their camcorder all the time. You've got the weirdo stoner that works at the video shop, which I think that if I were 25 in 1999, that would be me. There would be no YouTube for me to put my short films on and stuff. I think that would be me. And by establishing all these different characters like that, it made it a lot more gratifying when they would come back for various hijinks. Such perfect casting. Again, I have to say, like, I just have to stress this so much. I really like that they flipped the script on the best friend trope, because Jonah Hill, while he does eventually get the girl, it's after acting like a loser for majority of the runtime. And I don't mean loser in the sense that, like, oh, that's the trope that he's playing and just people in the school don't think they're cool, but they are cool characters, like you'd be friends with them. I don't mean that. Like in Superbad, Jonah Hill legitimately is acting like a loser. He's the very hypersexual one, trying to get Michael Cera to like be into hooking up with him that night. And Danny does the same thing, but I really enjoy that they make him a character that like actually has riz, because it makes so much more sense why Eli looks up to him so much. I mean, he's always like standing up for him. He's brave. He's the life of the party. Like, he's just this great character. And I was like, I love how they're flipping the script on this. And it was very intentional because it made it all the more disarming when he actually died. And when he first got stabbed, I was vehemently in denial. I was like, no, it's just a paper cut. It's just a paper. You're gonna walk it off. You're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine. I really was being delusional for a couple minutes there. I was like, maybe it missed all the major organs and arteries. Maybe they're gonna give him protagonist armor. But no, they really took Danny away from us right after the first act. That was very upsetting. But Eli couldn't have gone on his journey if Danny was still in the picture. If Danny was still around, then Eli would never have to kind of muster up the bravery that he does, both with the computer monsters and then also with the girl, with Laura. So that's what I'm talking about. The unpredictability of this movie was so good. And then the fact that it was a 1-2 punch, like I was starting to well up when he passed away. And then Farkas is like, oh, hell yeah. And then he goes to do his rollerblading trick and just, and unalives himself. He smacks his head and dies. I mean, what an idiotic way to go. That helped so much. Like, not only was it just so unexpected because someone that we cared about deeply literally just died, but also it kind of helped to shake off those very serious feelings, at least momentarily. You know, it cushioned the blow. It kept the viewing experience nice and light so that no tears actually fell. Now that I think about it though, I'm like, oh, this review is gonna be over kind of quick because there's not a lot of actual plot to go over. This truly was just running gags. The whole movie, it just was one huge bit. And it's amazing how strong a movie can still be when that is front and center and like not the plot. But they go off in the woods and they find the collective, which I know a lot of people don't have the same life experience as I, but growing up for part of my childhood in Northern California and growing up going to music festivals and stuff, I knew a couple of people that had big brothers that were just like that. To me, that feels at least the minimum like a universal Californian experience. You knew somebody that had a weird stoner older brother. You did. And sometimes you went to their house and it was like, oh yeah, that's my brother. He lives in the garage and he just stays there. We don't really talk to him. But then when he would emerge, he'd be like, yo, have you guys heard of like the flat earth theory? Anyway, tangents galore. Luckily, we only had to survive about one act without Danny before Fred Durst sort of, you know, replaced him. And I'm so sorry. Maybe I really don't know my history and maybe this is embarrassing for me. I didn't know who he was when he showed up, and so I was really thankful when, what was Lachlan Watson's character? When they were like, oh my god, it's Fred Durst. And then everyone said his name over and over and it was like, okay, yeah, hell yeah, like that's Fred Durst. Oh my god, I didn't even mention the kid Leroy, also somebody that I'm not familiar with. Afterwards, my friend was like, was that kid Leroy? And I was like, I'm gonna stop you right there. Who's that? I am Gen Z, I am, and I think I'm in the middle. Doesn't Gen Z start in like 95 or something? And yet there is so much of the world that I do not know. I can't even, you know what? I can't believe that I didn't mention him because he has a line that's an homage to Stu. He was like, oh man, my parents are gonna be so mad at me. Wow, scream homage. Anyway, I guess I'm kind of skipping ahead to the end because that's kind of where we're at in the third act with Fred Durst. I really thought that he was gonna have a fun sort of cameo type death, something that you might have seen in This Is the End, which this movie kind of felt like. Oh, that's a good, if you want to describe this movie, then you could definitely describe it as Superbad meets This Is the End. Meets Scream. Or, well, there's a lot of death and This Is the End, but anyway, I thought that they for sure were setting up Fred Durst for one of those comedic celebrity deaths, because I just feel like oftentimes that's how those cameos go, and he lived, good for him. But before we get there, I also loved the tribute to hacking into the mainframe, that dumb shtick you would see in the early 2000s all the time. I think they did it in the first Charlie's Angels, and literally nothing makes sense. Like, nobody cares to explain the actual technology or the science. It just kind of happens, and I was so happy they did that with this movie too. Like, there just was a stupidly simple solution. Oh, I wonder if there's a back door in our school's website. Oh yeah, there is. Great. The editing in that scene too was just flawless. It's amazing that a plot can not only be secondary but also be full of so many tropes that we've seen before, and that it doesn't matter, the movie is still 100% enjoyable anyways. And maybe not for you, whatever. I cannot believe this has a 47% on Rotten Tomatoes. Maybe I should be more sympathetic. Maybe they are suffering from stick up your own ass disease. But yeah, it's a certain brand of comedy. It's a stoner comedy. And if that's not your jam and these characters are not your people, then it's probably not gonna be that funny to you. If you're a horror fan, it leans really heavy on the comedy, but if you're a slasher fan in particular, there are great deaths in this movie. It's something I certainly haven't seen before. I mean, a lot of moments were kind of giving me Terminator, but the machines were like these computer people, and the way that it engaged with humans was just so demeaning and so funny. The machines constantly making fun of the humans. It really was its own thing. I hadn't seen anything like it before. And thank God for that. It was so fresh. It is now one of my absolute favorite movies of the year. I'm so stoked that 2024 is still delivering. I was planning on reviewing Night Bitch for this video, but then I saw Y2K, and even though it is more straightforward, just comedy, I was like, I loved it so much. I don't care. I'm gonna have to talk about it. It means a lot to a girl like me that movies like this are being made. So shout out Kyle Mooney, shout out this entire cast, you killed it. Let me know all your thoughts, your questions, comments, concerns down below. I would love to continue the conversation. And if you want to continue the conversation on Night Bitch, go join me over on the Patreon. Depending on which tier you join over there, you get a bonus video every single week. I also have a second channel where I talk a lot about physical media. I also post spooky vlogs, I post travel vlogs. I'm also on social media. I am the most active on Instagram, really, and I did TikTok for approximately 2 seconds. But yeah, go find me elsewhere if you dare. More than anything, I just hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope I catch you in the next one. Bye.